on the computer. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second edition of True Quantum TV. Now, this is a very special edition we're going to be doing here today. Now, anybody who knows the work I do knows that I work with a lot of different energy tools, the crystalline energy tools. Here's one of them I use, and then there's the neutralization rings, and these are all on my website. So anybody who's done a session with me knows how powerful and interesting these things are, and they're very, very much a very big part of the whole concept of healing with energy. So now, of course, I've done many podcasts, many different radio shows talking about these tools, explaining to people how they work. And of course, the big question is, who makes these things? Where do they come from? You're not going to find them on Amazon.ca, let me tell you, boys and girls. They're not on eBay. They're not on any of these sellout types of formats. There is a person, and you can see his picture here. This fellow, him and I have been doing business now. We've known each other probably thousands of years, but in this lifetime, we've been working together for about a good 10 years. And we are a very good fit. There's something going on here that we're paying attention to. And to me, the tools are a very, very big part of all of this. It's called sacred geometry. The word sacred means connected to the divine, connected to source, if you will. And that's where all this really helps out to take place. So without any further ado, my special guest tonight is the founder, the creator, the designer, the builder. He's the main elf in the garage who builds these things. Everybody, please welcome to the show. This is Mr. Wayne Gatos.
Well, thanks very much for the intro. It's a privilege to actually be here and be able to express some of my feelings that I've kept to myself for a while, because there's been a lot of changes over the years, and I think right now we're on the threshold of the biggest change of all.
Well, and that big change, would you consider as an ascension?
Absolutely. We're rising up. There's no two ways about it. The new system that we have now is definitely the most powerful. We can measure it. I feel the best that I have in a long time. In fact, I've even had moments now where I've reflected back to being in my 20s. And that to me is like, it made my eyes like pop. I go, I remember feeling like that, but that was a long time ago. So how exciting is that?
Yeah, and you know what? And this is something that people have been searching for eons. The fountain of life, the reason for being, all of this stuff to make you feel young again, to bring our youth back. I think people have been paying millions of dollars researching this, trying to find that right thing, right switch to flip in order to get there. And I think that you've done it.
Well, what the key is, in one of the very first books that I read on pyramids, which we're talking probably 35 years ago, it was called Pyramid Energy, simple. And in the book, it was a very thick book, and in the book mentioned ad nauseum, almost every page had a reference to, if you change the energy, then you change the manifestation of the mass. So I've actually ruled my life and governed my life by that understanding. So if you hurt somewhere or there's something's not right, then you need to change the energy of it. And we theoretically, if we can reproduce ourselves every 7 years, then why should you even die in the first place? The reason is because there's some sort of degradation that's going on energetically that we haven't got a handle on yet. Because if you go into the Bible, it refers to people who are several hundred years old. If you go into Egyptology, we're talking thousands of years old. Thoth, for example, was they have records of 40,000 years. And I kept thinking over the years, if we can get the right energy combination, and then we can make the changes that are required, obviously in our DNA, and then we should be able to last indefinitely. Now, there is one other factor in that we're connected to Earth. So there are some factors there that we have to overcome. So it's not quite as simple as it sounds. It gets really complex really quick. But the bottom line is, if you aren't changing your energy, you're going downhill. And it's just when, not whether. So if we can change the resonance of our field and the electrical of our field, the magnetics and electromagnetics of our field, those are the four forces. And we got to cover them all. And also the mental aspect. And we have higher bodies, so we need to get in touch with those. And if there's aberrations in the higher blueprints, you've got to change the energy there. And when you do, you can feel the change down here. Because the third dimension is the mirror for all the other aspects of your beingness. So if you're hurting or there's something out of alignment on 3D, it's likely that it's not from 3D. It's at the higher levels. So what's totally awesome is that we developed a triple pyramid. And what the triple pyramid does is it works in this zone on the body, in this zone on the mind, and this zone is spirit. So I further looked into it and I came up with this chart here I'd like to show. And as you can see, the body is 3 octaves. The mind is 3 octaves. The spirit is 3 octaves for a total of 9.
3, 6, 9.
And we say that there's 9 dimensions, and then the 10th is basically your creation. So it's blank until you create something. So the first 9 is really the material manifestation. Even though your spirit body is very high frequency, it's still a material manifestation of your beingness. And your beingness is governing these 3 zones. So when I show you on the first octave, and then the part of you that's Earth is the second octave. The third octave is the solar system. Fourth octave is the galaxy, all the galaxies, or sorry, most of the galaxies and all the galaxies. So when we go from one zone to the next, we find that we have body, mind, and spirit manifesting 9 different octaves. How many dimensions are there? Gazillions within those ranges. But there's 3 main sets, if you will, that we can work from. So if I'm wanting to clear something that I'm not happy with, I got to find out first, well, where is it coming from? Well, for sure it's manifesting in my body, but it's coming from somewhere else. Now, we all have had lifetimes in the galactic zones, and most of the time we were warriors of some sort. So we have scars and battle scars over eons of time that are collected in that bandwidth. So a lot of our stuff doesn't come actually from a physical source. It comes from those past energies that we have not cleared yet. And we keep reliving them and magnetizing the same old story until we change that. So with the triple pyramid, we can do something as simple as taking the device and aiming it at our feet and doing a sweep up through the auric field, and it will clear an amazing amount of stuff in one sweep.
And because that pyramid's programmed within the 3 levels, we don't have to know where it's going. It just does it on its own, right?
That's right. So instead of trying to tune into the higher aspects of our, I mean, how many people tune into their universal body or their multiverse body? Well, if there's stuff coming from there, which there for sure is, if you haven't been there, then it isn't going to be clear. That's for sure. But when we take the triple pyramid that works in that bandwidth and we do a sweep, it's like sweeping the floor. We're getting rid of the clutter and the dust and the garbage. So the triple pyramid does that extremely well. Well, why does it do it? Well, I'm going to do a quick It's taken years to put all this together in a nice package where it's functional and practical. So initially we started off with a pyramid, and we made pyramids out of brass on the base and copper as the rise on the sides. The reason for that is copper is hot, brass is cold, so the two together give you balance. If you make a pyramid out of one or the other, then it's not good for everybody. So then the next step is we put plating on the pyramids. Now you have Wilhelm Reich's orgone effect. And orgone energy, if you study Wilhelm Reich at all, you know how therapeutic that is. Then when you put the orgone layering of the metals, what we did is we connected with the work of Sir Walter Russell. And what he shows is that there are 64 elements and 9 octaves. What a coincidence. So each of those elements is within 9 octaves. Well, his chart goes linear. In other words, horizontal. And I got from guidance that we should be considering going vertical. Mm-hmm. Well, I know, back to this chart here, that's a vertical chart, not a horizontal one. So the horizontal gives me the layout, but this gives me the scope. So in a nutshell, what I did is I tune into at first I use zinc. So I tune into my zinc, and what I tuned into was the first octave of the zinc in my body. And then I found, okay, well, how am I going to do the second octave? Well, just to do it simply, if this energy field here is first octave, then the second one is higher. So I put my hand like this, and I could feel the zinc on the second octave. If I go again, I can feel it on the third octave. And each time I would do that and go to the next octave, you could feel it was like lifting your head. The top of your head would kind of lift. And so I would feel this uplift. And the old saying, as above, so below, is correct. You have zinc on all 9 octaves. Well, I wonder what 9th octave zinc downloaded into this body would do. Well, I found out that it wasn't that easy to just do that. You have to clear the zinc that's on those levels, because it isn't resonating 100% clear. So then I started, okay, well, let's go into the second bandwidth and make it pure. So needless to say, the main operative word is pure. Second one is clear. And the overall underlying power comes from the heart. So your heart generates a magnetic field. So if you want to fix anything in your body, you've got to build the magnetics of that organ that's weak. And your heart is the source of that. So before we go any further, I'd like to just do a quick note. There's heart. So when I ask people, okay, put some heart into this, open your heart. What happens is mechanically, an idea of that comes into your third eye, and it gets downloaded into your heart and projected. And it comes out as a waveform, which has power, has energy, but it's not a field. So when I say open heart, and then I say open heart mind gives you the next level of heart. It takes you to that next octave. So you can feel there's the very difference in the field of heart versus heart mind. Well, if there's heart mind in their second octave, there's got to be lots more. So I start naming them. Well, now we have an effervescent heart. And then we have a plasma heart. And then we have a radioactive heart. And each time we go up, it gets more strong heart field. So if we can go to a plasma heart or a radioactive heart and download that field into the body's energy field, it's going to be way more powerful healing than if you just say, okay, well, I should put some heart into this. That's mental. And that doesn't get you very far. It'll help, but it's not really there. So the first thing is is to understand that your heart's magnetic field is the main driver. And if you can take a triple pyramid and download that consciousness in there, then that's going to be an awesome, better pyramid. So the shungite does that. So that's why we put shungite. Now, the pyramid is very masculine. The sphere is feminine.
Mm-hmm.
The ring, the divinity ring, if you know our product line, we call this the divinity ring. The divinity ring is in every culture. They have a version of this. And we call it divinity ring because we used it to we placed it at the ankles so that the crosshairs, this is one ankle bone, that's the other ankle bone. That puts the crosshairs directly in line with your spine. And what would happen is the vortex coming from this, because it's a vortex generator, the vortex coming from this would go up your spine. And when it reached around throat chakra, I'd say, okay, you're feeling it up here. And people go, yeah, I can really feel it here. And what it did is it connected the chakras to each other. So that's a really good thing because working independently, 7 antennas are not the same as 7 antennas working coherently.
You want them all in alignment.
So by connecting them, we got the coherence. Once somebody got to the point of opening up to about this level and starting in the head area, then we would take a second divinity ring and we would place it above the head and tune it because there's a sweet spot there. And when we did that, it really brought up the last connectors to 6 and 7. And then what we noticed was that coming off the top of your head, and it varies from person to person, but most of the time it comes from right there. And there's like what looks like a sperm. It literally looks like a sperm. And this thing would come up and wiggle around and shoot up and go into the 8th chakra. And I go, wow, that's amazing. Because what we've done is we've hardwired, if you know that the crown chakra, it's the 1,000-petal lotus, which means it's got 1,000 petals coming off the top of your head, and they're all in your head until you make a connection to the 8th chakra, which is your Christos field, because we have 12 chakras. So when you make a connection to the 8th chakra, you're in the Christos field. Well, now you're coming from pure heart mind. You're coming from resonance, okay? And what got you there was the ring. Well, so I did a little work on the ring, and why is it so special? Why does everybody have this? Well, the reason is I wrote it out here, is because there's aspects to these 4 quadrants. And if you program which program you want, which field you want to use. So there's several fields. Well, one of the fields is each quadrant is either air, earth, fire, or water. I don't know if it's sort of holding that properly. So when you take the triple pyramid or a divinity ring on its own, but now I've got triple pyramid, it's like driving it with a dragster engine instead of a scooter. So when you place it over your solar plexus, and you can feel there's something happening there. The vortex of energy that's there wants to balance those 4 forces, air, earth, fire, and water. So you hold it there and you give it that program. You just talk to the pyramid because everything is consciousness and awareness. So if you put the awareness that you are looking to do balancing of the air, earth, fire, water, then hold it there and they gradually shift and shift and shift. And what you feel is it builds a 0-point field there. And it may take a minute, it may take an hour. Every person, there's no program of how long it takes. It's whatever it takes. But this instrument helps you get there in a big way. So when you get to this balance spot, what you sense is a 0-point field about an inch above your belly button. Well, when you're working from a 0-point field, it's like sending out a perfect blueprint without any stuff on it.
No interference.
No interference. So that, see right there, I've just now zeroed myself because we're in a lot of stress right now for various reasons. So to bring that calm back, how do you do it? Well, when you're centered in your solar plexus, then you're centered. This is not centered. This is centered.
So let me ask, so you talk about the pyramid. Just let me interject for a second. What is the difference between the pyramid and something like this, the Vesica Piscis?
Yes. So each one of those builds its own resonant field. So the next one that's relevant is electrical, magnetic, and I use magnetoelectric because English language has reversed a lot of good energy. So if you say electromagnetic and compare that to magnetoelectric, there's a more balancing effect from magnetoelectric. So, but they are the same. And then resonance. So those are the 4 forces. So again, now I can change the program. I tell the pyramid, the consciousness of the pyramid, we're working on those 4 forces. And I can feel one of them is off a bit this morning because I've been up since 3:45 this morning. And so right there, it just went back to 0 again. So now I'm more centered there. I'm more balanced. I feel more balanced, more calmer again. Okay. So guidance has extended that understanding because I happened to hear somebody talking about time, space, energy, and momentum. And if you're doing a project, anything like going to get a glass of water, if you don't have the momentum, you just sit there and say, I am thirsty, but I'm not moving. So without momentum, all the goodwill in the world isn't going to take you anywhere. So this was critical. So I had a couple come over a couple of weeks ago, and it took her a while. They were trying to set up a new website. And I says, well, my sense is that your momentum is lacking. So the lady, she held it there probably for 20 minutes. And then we looked up at each other and we just smiled because we both knew she built the momentum to balance with the other ones. So I'm describing this the other day to a friend, one of my dealers, and guidance cuts in and says, we'll give you another one. So I've added that because we had this printed already. And the next one is intent, energy, direction, and acceptance. And when I said that out loud to my connection, she goes, wow, that's powerful. And I says, well, I just did it to myself. I agree. Okay. So when you put those energies into an amplifier system like this, you're just blasting everything out that's not that. So I'm going to make one statement right now that's probably going to be the most important statement of how to use this, because we're going to give you a number of ways to use it. But the most important thing is that you have 5 senses in the right hand, and you have 5 senses in the left. The left is the usual smell, see, hear, taste, touch. The right hand is wisdom, intuition, perception, imagination, and reason. That's what we're working on once we get these guys settled down. So the key being imagination. Now, why do the controllers want you to stop daydreaming and listen to get with the program? Because they don't want you expanding your consciousness and your well-being. And you do that very well by imagination. So if, for example, my elbow is sore and I focus on it being sore, then it's going to be sore. So what's the opposite of that? Well, I can imagine what it would be like to be perfectly in tune with the rest of my body. So that's what I imagine. Now, everything is awareness and consciousness. So the consciousness of the system is now feeling, because it's feeling, it's as much thought, but it's feeling. Feeling has way more power than thought. So bring the feeling of a healthy arm, elbow, not the thought of it. You can do the thought, but it's like 1 on a scale of 10.
You want to make the intent.
Feeling is 1/2 out of 10. Okay, the feeling is all important. So to bring in that back to the pyramid in describing what we put in here, this is masculine, these are masculine, this is feminine, this is feminine. What does that bring? It brings the feeling. So now we have a system that brings in the feminine balance. So it is now masculine, feminine balanced. And the original prototype that you got didn't have the sphere.
No.
And I wanted to put the sphere in right away, but guidance said, do the pyramid. So I did. But I was still left with the niggle. So finally it worked itself out and we got to the point where a friend actually suggested, well, how come you don't have a sphere in here? And I go, I want a sphere in there. He says, well, just put it there. And I go, brilliant. So that's how it got there. A little help from my friends. So now we have the masculine feminine balance that I wanted. And when you take a sphere and put it in there, it is a huge improvement. So we love the upgrade. Now you've got 2 pieces that you can send your thoughts to and feelings and download. And there's, in my opinion, there's no better chip, if you will, than shungite. A quartz crystal doesn't hold a candle, in my opinion, to shungite for programming. And a quartz crystal is great, but shungite's better. So you can, by the way, you can put shungite with quartz crystal. So if you want to add more juice to this, only use clear quartz, because the shungite has consciousness enough that if you want this to be amethyst, then you just ask it to change to amethyst field, and it will do so. If you lock it in, it will lock in. If you don't, as soon as you stop using it, it won't have amethyst anymore. It'll go back to normal, to shungite field.
Everything is intent.
Exactly. So now we are light beings, I understand. So
Some of us.
we got to have lights. So I put some lights in there and it definitely helped. It made it better. But the lights were not full spectrum. Okay, Chris has got his lights on.
Okay.
Great.
I've always got my lights on, Wayne.
He's got his lights on, all right. Good pun. Yeah, I didn't put them on so you wouldn't have the bright. But obviously, full spectrum lights is what we want. I didn't get them initially, and it made a nice improvement, but now we have a fantastic improvement because these are full spectrum lights. They actually have four generators in them rather than 3 to make the white. They actually have white in it. So I've had people go, wow, is that ever white? And they're not used to that, so they go, it's really bright. And what I noticed is that when I first started using them, I found them to be fairly bright. But the more that you resonate with this, the less they have an effect on you because you're resonating to them.
Sure.
Okay, so if you have an hour session versus a 5-minute one, 5-minute one, your lights will still bother you. After like a 1 or 2 hour session, you look at it and you go, whatever. It's nowhere near as hard to see. So that's basically what we put in here. Oh, I missed the photon bead, or tachyon bead, sorry. It puts out photons, okay? So the pyramid puts out tachyons.
Is that what this is up here?
The bead puts out photons. The shungite puts out negative ions. The layered metals and pyramids put out orgone energy. So we've got several energies all combined to one. And I read a couple of years ago, the way that the healing tools of the future are going to be designed is they're going to be designed by combining modalities. And if you're into color, you just, instead of having a full spectrum of red, orange, blue, yellow, you can ask the shungite to be that color and ask for it to be the exact frequency that you require. So if you're working on your liver, which really likes yellow, then you place the pyramid there, go to yellow, and you can feel it penetrates different than when you don't add the yellow.
And what we do over here is we work with elements. Okay, the indium is a big one. Whatever you need, and we just tell the pyramid to program that and put it in.
Yes. So I studied a lot, not a lot, but I've learned a lot. Let's put it that way. I've learned a lot from Wilhelm Reich and for Sir Walter Russell. And Sir Walter Russell says that there's 64 elements and the rest are isotopes. And when you read any of his books, by the time you've read 3 pages, you're probably going to tend to agree with him. The guy's a genius. He's, in my opinion, absolutely in the Tesla League, past the Einstein League. And that's the caliber of this individual. And he wrote books in the early 1900s about nuclear energy. Well, most people didn't even know what that was. And he wrote a book warning about why not to use it. That's where he was at with it. So he understood theoretical physics extremely well. And like I say, if you see any literature by him, you're probably burnt out after 3 pages because there's so much to think about.
There's a ton of stuff he does, ton of stuff.
Yeah, so he's an amazing person. So when he says that there are 64 elements and each element has a masculine or feminine principle to it. So let's check that out. So you go to zinc and you feel it. You go to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Yeah, it's male all the way. It's male. So at some point, if you can go up the octaves, and with this you can. If I ask people to just go to the 6th octave, that's very difficult for a lot of people if they've never done that before. If you're used to doing energy work, well, then it'll be easier for you. And then each element is different. If you try to bop up to the 6th octave of carbon, I would like to be there, because carbon, in my opinion, sorry, I'll backtrack. Each element has a wisdom connected to it. So I start asking guidance, give me some of this information. It's like a treasure chest. It's like I've just been delivered this golden treasure chest of goodies, and it's for my ascension. It's for my, if you don't want to use that term, it's for my realization, because we are to become realized. Why are we here? What's number one? Why are we here?
Ascend.
Become realized. And when you're realized, you can call it ascension, but you're realized that you are on all of these levels. So if you can get some device that helps facilitate connecting to those levels, then it's going to be a big boost to your ascension program. So if you can take, for example, carbon, and then you go to the 2nd octave of carbon, it immediately opened my heart. And I go, well, that's very cool. And you go to the 3rd octave and it opens some more. Well, by the time you get to the 6th octave, it's blasting you. In fact, it's so intense that you're probably only going to stay there for a short time, the first couple times you get there. And so the carbon for me is the hardest one. All the other ones are much easier. Iron is an easy one. Zinc is an easy one. Calcium is an easy one. Okay. And what are your main mineral building blocks? Sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. And for females, iron, males, zinc. And so in that order, I started doing some work. Well, immediately I realized that if I could resonate zinc at the second octave, so I can put this here and say, let's feel zinc at the second octave. So I'm going to tune to it, and it's going to complete the circuit with the pyramid in circuit here, and I can feel it coming to me now. So I'm receiving the zinc. Is it pure? Initially, no. So then I have to put pure into the field. I have to put clear, because clear will clear energies. I can put a little bit of magic to the ability that I'm able to do so, because I have to clear whatever's causing that negativity, because it's not perfect. Now, here's how you tell when it is. I'm sitting here and I'm holding this, and I feel zinc at the second level. And as soon as it's pure, I'm now rising up some more, and it takes me to the third octave. I don't drive myself there. I'm on the bus. I'm not driving the bus. I'm a passenger on the bus. What I'm doing is making sure that it's clear. So when I reach 100% clarity, that's my signal that I'm good to go, and I do go to the next level. If you don't get that, you're not ready to go to the next level. So I would spend 20 minutes, half an hour at a time working on clearing 2, 3, 4 octaves of an element. Now, when you get to the higher levels, then you start to have a higher level of receptivity, and you can say, okay, what is it? Is this masculine or feminine? Well, you find out one or the other. Then, what is the consciousness? Well, if it's cadmium, and I worked on cadmium fairly quickly because welding all these things together gives off cadmium. So I'm very conscious of the fact that I do plating, I do welding, and both of them are really toxic. So if I'm doing that for 35 years, I better keep cleaning my system, or I'm not going to make 35 years. Well, I'm still here and I'm doing good. So when I got to the consciousness of cadmium, I go, I know why I really wanted to go to cadmium, because who doesn't have this issue? The ability to receive love. That's cadmium.
Right.
And the higher you go to the ninth octave, man, the love just pours on you, and you're just going, you're wallowing in it, literally. It's just like you're in seventh heaven, floating.
I'm going to go see my wife and say, I cadmium you, honey.
Right on. So, okay, so that gives you an understanding of where I've gone with this. And the reason I went there, it seemed like maybe a little bit off topic, but it's not, because then you'll understand some of the levels that I've put into the signatures that went into the shungite. So for example, I watched a program, and it talked about how they had just discovered that a supernova exploded in our universe, or in our galaxy, sorry. They figure 100 to 200,000 years ago, and it spread iron all over creation, and some of it landed on Earth. And they did some research, and they found deposits of it. Actually, it's everywhere. So, and it's in the form of 60 Fe. Well, shungite is C60, which means 60 atoms in a molecule. That's designating the number of atoms. But when it's a prefix, 60 Fe, it means that it's an isotope, a radioactive isotope of iron. Well, as you go up the totem pole here, you'll find that radioactivity is the highest form of dimension, the highest form of energy on the third dimension. But it's a little off kilter. So you use an orgone field and a philosopher's stone field, if you can got one of those, and you direct them at the iron, and you transmute it so that it's therapeutic rather than a toxin. You may have to go, I went right to the ninth octave with it. Then what I did is I brought oxygen up to the ninth octave, and I merged them. But before I did that, I started at the first octave. So here we have iron, 60 Fe iron, and oxygen, and I merged them, and then I weaved them up to the ninth octave. And then I said, okay, let's come back down now and download into here. So I charge up a glass of water, drink the water, and I go, my oxygenation just went up because I directed that to the hemoglobin in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we better test this because some hard science is always good. Tuning is one thing, but if I'm wrong, hard science can tell me that. So let's get out the oxygen sensor and see what I'm reading. So I did that after 2.5 hours after treating myself, after working for a couple of hours, and I read 99%. Since I've added some signatures to the triple, and I wake up in the morning and spend an hour or two in its field, directly on the body. This morning I checked after doing the stereo event last night, listening to it for 4 hours. I thought it would probably increase my oxygen a bit. So my sensor doesn't show decimal points, it just shows 99%. When I did it the first time, I go, well, I would like to know what that decimal point is. And guidance told me it was 0.2. This morning when I woke up, they said it was 99.6. Okay. I actually had one event where I ended up in the hospital, and I did some magic at that time before I went there. And I went and had the oxygen tested, and I asked my son what the number on the monitor was, because the nurse looked at it and her jaw dropped, and she walked out of the room kind of flabbergasted. So I smiled and I asked my son, what number is on the screen? And he looked over and he says 100. And I said, that's why her jaw dropped.
Well, I know with me, I've been using this, holding it to my lungs and my heart, and every day now I notice that I can do more on my treadmill. It's not as labor intensive as it used to be. I got one of those Bowflex tread climbers, and those things are tough to use. And I'm noticing every day now it's better, better, better.
It's cumulative. So someone says, well, how long do I need to use this for? Well, the more you use it, the better you're going to be in different areas, and everybody's going to have their story, right? So I had one lady, I went and delivered, she got a treatment from one of my dealers, and she's a dealer as well. So we talked, and she goes, do you have the triple pyramids ready yet? And I said, yeah, actually, that's why I'm calling you. I do have some. She goes, bring me 2. And I says, you want 2? And she says, I can't imagine what 2 of those together is going to be like. And I says, well, we're about to find out. So I dropped them off at her place, and I handed them to her, and she just looked up at me and said, the clarity is amazing. And I said, yes, it's a serious improvement in clarity. I mean, it improves you in many ways. How to get a handle on all of them. I mean, just little idiosyncrasies that you notice that, yeah, I'm better.
Well, what I've told you is that the dowsing that I'm doing has gone up like from here to here within a matter of days.
Yes.
The answers are so much clearer.
I mean, I used to say this with the rings, and it's true for the rings, but it's really true for the triple pyramid.
You can notice it very quickly.
And very quickly. Where the rings, I say, if you haven't noticed anything in a week, then the likelihood is that you're not very perceptive, or that there's a lot of crust to break through there, and it's just not time yet. But 1 out of 3 get it right away. 1 out of 3 have to be directed, and then the 1 out of 3 need time. They will get there, and we've had instances where it's taken a year. They've used the rings on their food for a year, and finally, after that length of time, they go, I can actually feel this now. So everyone's got their story, and it will be different. So, but as a generic statement, to give you an idea in numbers, a neutralization ring and sun ring in a 4-inch will structure your cells about 7 layers deep. That's atomic, subatomic source, and we have 3D here. My understanding is that there's 32 layers in between. So that means there's 32 blueprints before we get to the physical body. So what makes you up? A lot, all 32 blueprints. And if there's anything wrong in any one of those blueprints, well, then it's got to affect what you end up with here. So the deeper you can go in structuring and bringing sacred geometry to that structuring, heart-mind resonance to that structuring, masculine-feminine balance to that structuring, then the deeper we go, the better it is for us and the more therapeutic it becomes. So when I looked into this, when I started, a crystal will go 3 layers of structuring. If it's a really powerful crystal, it might get 4, but that's pretty much maxed out. So when you use a sun ring and it goes 6 or 7 layers deep, that's significant. Well, then we got to the 9-inch rings, and they will go up to 22 layers of structuring. The bioenergy field of the food that you charge with the 4-inch rings, neutralization and sun, you'll get a bioenergy field of about 7 to 12 feet. If you use the 9-inch rings, you're looking at about 20 feet, even a little more. But with this guy, we're talking 68 feet. When I asked guidance, how big is the field of the plate that I just charged and I'm going to eat, when I first did it, how big is this field? And the answer was 68 feet. So that'll give you an idea of comparing what we have had to work with and what we have now. It's a couple of octaves in intensity, higher and better.
Which in most cases, that's where you need to be, is you need to go to that length in order to get to that. You need those tools to get to that level.
Yes, yeah. So if you can eat food that's got a bioenergy field of 68 feet, well, what's that going to do? Well, let's find out. So let's try something. So let's structure in, for example, collagen. Well, who needs collagen? Well, if you want to maintain elasticity in your whole body, you need collagen. So as we get older in males, prostates become an issue. Well, why does a prostate get hard and lose its flexibility? And therefore, it's hard to get through, and then you got pain. Collagen. So when I asked guides, is that the main factor? And they said, yeah, it's the main, not the only, but it's the main factor. So if you can reverse your collagen quotient, then you're going to reverse your prostate issue. Well, let's find out, because I'm there. So I delivered through the system pure collagen consciousness. And it took about 3 days, and I feel I dropped about 50% in my pain level because I was getting pain. Now I still have some pain, but it's more intermittent and way less. So, and the more I use this, the more I can feel that when I tune into my prostate now, it's becoming flexible. Now it's taken a month to get where I am, but it took me 70 years to get where I am as well, on the other side of the scale. So usually the ratio is about 1 to 8. So if you took 8 years of going downhill, it's going to take you a year to come back.
Which is pretty darn good.
That's old school thinking. With the triple pyramid set up the way it is, and your heart mind driving it, it's way faster than that.
Can be
so
immediate.
Don't think it's going to be way faster. So, because I can download oxygen, Fe, 60 Fe, and I can feel the oxygenation in my body like right now. 1 glass of water will do it. I like to do tests on people and give them one sip of water and watch their response. And the most common words are, this is the most amazing device I've ever seen. Okay, so one lady says, this has got the power of a supernova. So her guy called me up and said, my lady friend thinks that you are working with a supernova for power. And I said, well, she's right on the beam. I downloaded the supernova iron that's on Earth. I downloaded that consciousness into the system. So she's out there, obviously, to be able to even sense that. Well, this kind of put her right there, and she goes, I know where I'm at. So she understood the process. So she was extremely impressed. She goes, that thing is amazing, powerful. And so that thing is amazing is the most common phrase that I've heard so far.
That's what she said.
Yeah, and that's what many have said. So one other thing before I forget that we also put in the triple pyramid system is because the lights require a transformer, we put in an EMF harmonizer, biofield enhancer into the system. Okay?
That's a little sticker on the black box.
On the black box.
Yeah.
So what would normally give you a little bit of 60 hertz nastiness, that's been dealt with. And we use the Tesla principle where instead of having to nullify something, we take it and raise its frequency. Just like, example, arsenic. If I said to you, download some arsenic, you're going to go, huh? And I go, well, if you download regular arsenic, then that's not good. If you get a very, very tiny amount, it is good, like in almonds. It will help your immune system. That's what Edgar Cayce said, okay? But if you take that arsenic to the 9th octave, or even past 4, most things start really working at the 4th octave. 3rd, not so much, but when you get to 4th octave, 5th octave, and especially 6th octave, now it's for sure in your favor. So I felt my immune system vitality, and then I downloaded 9th octave arsenic. And I went, wow, this is seriously good. I could just feel the viruses and bacteria like run for cover because that frequency is like TNT to them. All right. So what seems to be against you, arsenic, becomes your friend. And the same thing with cyanide, same thing with a lot of things that you would think are toxic. So, and again, back to reiterate, the special ones are the radioactive ones. And if you combine, so example, calcium, if you can tune in to the calcium knit in my bones this morning, because it's better than it was yesterday because of the 4 hours of listening to my stereo system last night. Because I put 2 triple pyramids on my amplifiers, one in the front and one in the back, and I hadn't done that before, and it was a whole new experience. If you're an audiophile, you would be seriously impressed. In fact, you wouldn't believe unless you heard my system. It is like, I had an engineer come over and he said, I just heard recently a $60,000 system. I like yours better. Well, I've made several upgrades since then, and putting 2 triples was a massive upgrade. So he isn't going to recognize my system the next time he comes here. And he was already comparing it to 60K. So that's the league that my stereo's in now.
That's interesting, because both you and I are considered audiophiles. I design and build my own speakers. You've made many, many changes and upgrades and customizations to your system. And music,
my speakers are homemade too.
Yeah. Yeah. We use the same type of tweeters, which is like, wow, how'd that happen?
How'd that happen? Well, when you ordered, I just phoned up my fella that I connected with in Montreal and said, what are your best tweeters? And he said, the Scansby. And so I said, I'll have a pair.
Yeah, there I've got a small tube amp that I bought off the internet, and I'm programming those tubes with different things and getting different results out of the sound, and it's fun. So a lot of people will go out and spend $100,000. I spent $1,300 on my speaker wire, the flat copper Gert stuff, and sometimes the simple things is what makes the biggest difference. So that using this geometry with it really changes the waveform of the music coming out.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what I also discovered that we could even address right now is the Divinity Ring does a lot of neat things. So initially what I did is I took a speaker wire, did one single wrap, and I put a sun ring on it, hooked it up. Yeah, it's definitely better. In fact, you could compare the left channel to the right channel, and the side that had it on was obviously better. Then the next event was putting a platinum sun ring on one side of the cable and a gold sun ring on the other. That was another improvement. Then I got the next upgrade was putting the platinum with the gold one driving it, then the cable, then the Divinity Ring. Well, when I heard that on one cable, I did all the other 7. So it's on the power line and everything. So all of that made it a really good improvement in the sound. So you might want to go there.
Lots of playing to do. I got a whole garage full of your tools we can pull out and start having some fun with.
All right. Okay, what I'd like to do next is talk about some of the benefits of all the different places, not benefits, sorry, but all the different places that you can use the triple system on. So I did a quick cheat sheet here, and obviously your food, getting 60 some feet out of your food for bioenergy is going to change your life. Like in one meal, if you're even remotely sensitive, eating one meal with the triple, I mean, the sun ring and neutralization ring, they're good, but this is fantastic. It's a way different experience. Secondly, you can work it directly on the body. So if I have a sore arm, I can work directly by aiming it at the arm for as long as it takes. And the other day I had a searing pain from grinding for a couple, 3 hours. And it's like I pulled some muscles in my rotator cuff. And I go, that's not good. I could be not working for a day or 2. So I went in right away and I put the pyramid on there. And in 20 minutes, the searing was gone. And I could move it and make it hurt a little bit. But the searing, and if I didn't do that, it was fine. 20 minutes. That's nice, because it was not pleasant. So then what we can do is we can use the triple to get way more mileage out of our supplements. Because if you take, I got some propolis here. If you can take your supplement after you've neutralized it and charged it on a sun ring, then you put it here, charge it here. And if you put it here and download into your food or glass of water, that's one resonant field. If you change and put it here, that's the next 3 octaves. And obviously that's the final 3 octaves. Well, that's 3 bandwidths of charge of B propolis. So it operates as above, so below. Mm-hmm. So it's now giving me sustenance on all 3 of the, on all 9 octaves, all 3 zones. You go and you taste the food compared to not having this in here, and you can taste the difference just by putting one thing in. Now, needless to say, the more you do this, your deficiency of whatever propolis is giving you is going to be gone real quickly. And the proof of that is, for me, is my experience is that when I put in the supplements in the smoothie first thing in the morning for breakfast, that smoothie generally took 15, 20 things in the morning as supplementation. As I've been using this and charging those supplements in, I'm assimilating for sure better. And so now I notice that I'm down to like 5 or 6 supplements in the morning. instead of 15 or 20. I have about 100 choices.
In that store going, aren't you?
Yeah, so I like to cover all the bases. So if I need something, I've probably got
You got it. You got a drugstore. Yeah.
Okay. So now, cosmetics and facial creams and such, they all have their downside. If you can spin those babies up to a much higher frequency, then I want to make this clear. It does not neutralize the toxin. If you have cadmium, you still have 100% cadmium there. But now the cadmium is at this octave of resonance instead of here. Here it's toxic. Here it's so highly charged, it goes out of the body and the body says, I recognize it for one thing, because it has the organic spin, which this gives. All the devices do.
Mm-hmm.
So when you got the organic spin, the body recognizes it as something that it doesn't want, and it goes out, and it has the energy to do so. Just a little side event is when your body has more energy, the first thing it does generally is detoxify. So if I give your body a little bit more energy than it has, you'll have a little more energy for movement. But if I give you a little bit more than that, your body's going to go into detox mode. So if you do a long session with this, like I did last night on my stereo, you'll go and in the evening, your urine is generally pretty clear. Mine is. It's very clear. It wasn't last night with 4 hours of stereo time. It was very yellow. And I just looked and laughed. And I go, no surprise. And I feel purified to my bone this morning. In fact, earlier I said, tune into my calcium knit. I feel like I'm solid as a rock. And I tuned into when I was like in my 20s, because I'd like to be back there like everybody else. And if you feel, tune into this, if you will. Here's my bones at 20, and here's my bones today. Which one would you prefer?
20.
So I'm resonating a stronger bone signal than when I was in my 20s. Yeah, that was my conclusion. So supplements, creams, oils, essential oils. Essential oils, I love them. I got about 100 of those as well and use them a lot. So I'm used to using them for years, so I know what they're like, what they do. And when you charge your bottle of oil up or your blend, it's a way different event. If you just plug in your triple and you're not using it directly, or you're charging your food, don't just unplug it and stick it in the corner. If you put it on its side and put it in a corner of the room, plug it in, and it will fill the room with ionization. And I did one store, and they were like 40 feet from one wall to the other, and you could go stand on the opposite wall and feel all the ions just blasting at you. And the whole air was pure and clean. The viruses are being killed. Okay, like one friend came over and said, are you concerned about the virus? And so I had charged a piece of shungite with a lot of frequencies, and I put it on the table and said, if you were a virus, what would you do? And she jumped out of her chair. And I said, that's what I thought. Okay, now if you water your plants, obviously charging the water is a good thing. And we have a cactus that's in our kitchen where we just leave it on all day, and it happens to be aimed at the cactus. Well, that cactus was going brown, it was getting spots on it, it had the little leaves on the side, it dropped all those. Then I brought this out, and it's now, it's like a weed. Officially, I would call it a weed, not a slow-growing cactus, because I'll put it beside the weeds in my garden, and this thing's probably growing faster. It is amazing to see that plant, how much it's grown, how many new shoots it's got, and it's just loaded with those little leaves now. So it's a black and white scenario for the plants. So
And
if
it's
you're in a
measurable. You
plant,
can see it right in front of your eyes.
you can take a plant that hasn't received this energy and just put the pyramid on its side, aim it at it, and just wait. And in 1 or 2 minutes, if you're sensitive, you're going to go, that plant just loves this. And I go, yes, it does. Okay. So plants are great. Audio system, I'll just give you a quick peek of mine.
Oh, this is an amazing system. You got a full granite stereo stand that you built custom, right?
Yeah, from pieces. Okay, but that gives you an idea. There's about 20 different rings and pieces. I think 27 I counted.
So that will basically take the sound stage and bring it right forward now, won't it?
What it does every time you add a device, well, people say, well, what do they do? They'll come over and listen to it and say, well, that sounds really good. What's doing what? Well, I'll just go over and take one piece off, and they'll go, oh, okay. If you pull the plug out of the triple pyramid and shut the lights off, the whole field collapses. It's black and white. As soon as you instantly put it on, it's right back again. But what's also interesting is that when you're doing some experimenting, if you put a triple pyramid in front like you saw, it will take 2 or 3 tracks to build up where it's kind of settled in, and it keeps improving over that time.
Okay.
And then you come back tomorrow, and if you leave it all set up, you come back tomorrow, and the first track is going to be better than what you just heard today. Okay, so it takes a couple or 3 days actually to fully charge the system. So if you remove a piece, if you want it back to where it was, it takes a couple or 3 days, okay, to fully charge. I noticed last night when I put the second triple pyramid, it took probably about 2 hours, and then all of a sudden it just kicked in another octave, and it was there, and I could feel it was like, okay, did another tweak. And I didn't. It just managed to download better. Yeah. The next thing on my list here is sound therapy.
Okay.
Because that's how I did my knit of my calcium in my bones. It's programmed in the system. All I had to do was spend the time, and double your pleasure, I had 2 triple systems. So it did another level of knitting the calcium in my bones. So today I feel like a rock, literally. I mean, I did before, but now I feel like that even more so. Yeah. So now another thing you can do with it is you can do sweeps. So I think I mentioned that earlier, is you just sweep through the field. Now, to continue that a little further, if I do one sweep up, starting, what I do is I aim it at the feet first, and I place it at that angle. So my feet are here. So I'm basically aiming about a foot below the feet. It's like your 0 chakra position. Sure. And most people, when you're emotionally distressed, and right now a lot of people seem to have a reason to be, so we could use a little help there. Well, when you take any pyramid and you place it there, it will help draw your 0 chakra back to its position. Because if you're very emotionally stressed, it's not even there. I asked one lady, I said, do you know your 0 chakra? And she says, I think I know what you mean. I says, can you tell where it is? She goes, over there. I said, yeah, it's about 35 feet away from you. She goes, well, I have 3 kids and they're driving me nuts. And I said, well, let's see if we can fix that, okay? So I gave her a quick treatment. And what I did is I just placed the pyramid before her feet, and I wait. And I just stand there and watch. And after about 30 seconds, I go, how grounded are you? She goes, very. And I says, and after about a minute, I says, does it feel like somebody nailed your feet to the floor? She goes, exactly, okay? And I make the statement, you don't know what grounded is until you've had this experience, Okay, so once you're grounded, your zero chakra is where it belongs, then you can start, go square to the body. Okay, about 6 inches away is good because you're in the first zone of your layered chakra field, auric field. So you start at your feet and you go up slowly and you finish off to the right about a foot over the head. And you go back, you do it again, a little bit faster, and you go to the left. And then you do it the third time, and you go straight up. Okay? And those 3 sweeps, you do the front, you do the back. Obviously, you're not doing it. You have a partner. So you have them do the sweep the back, and then you go from the side, and you do a zigzag, just like this, all the way up the side on either side. And then if you're tuned, you'll feel or see that you are now in an egg-shaped auric field. And it's way clearer, and it can improve 6 times virtually. If you do that full meal deal sweep, you will be at least 6 times bigger auric field. The likelihood is you'll be about 12 times bigger than you started. And you can pick any layer, measure it to start with. So let's say you pick this layer here. Okay, you've measured that. That's the edge of that zone. Now do the treatment, and you're going to be like several feet over there for that same zone. Okay. How far does the pyramid project? Without anything in it, I measured it at 62 feet. That's just a bare frame. I haven't measured this. I haven't gone there yet. And we're talking a very large field. So if you hold this up like that, aim it into a large room, it's going to fill a large room.
And keep dispersing.
It's that you have the lampshade effect, it's called. So it goes out the same angle as the pyramids are angled. Okay, so it'll cover a lot of area. So if you're in a greenhouse, you can hang this really high and cover a lot of area. Yeah.
This is one awesome looking patio lantern now, isn't it, Wayne?
Yes. Okay, so that's all great. What does it do? Well, I got a sheet here of my experiences, and I've sold over a couple of dozen of them, so I've got some good feedback, but it's not like we've got hundreds of people. So I'm going to kind of give you what I've felt rather than saying that I've done a study. But I've been doing this for 35 years, and I've sold thousands of pyramids, literally, over the years. So we have an idea of what the past is like. So these are some of the things I'm going to say that I experienced, and it's partially because of what everyone that's going out the door is downloaded with. So if I make a claim here that did this, that's already downloaded in there. You don't have to figure out how to do that yourself. So you can expect, to a degree, what I have experienced. It may not be the same degree, maybe more or less, because we're all different. Everybody's chemistry is different. So right there, we can't be the same. So obviously, if you open your heart mind, that's one thing. If you slap this over your heart mind, your heart, and focus on heart mind, you can just feel your emanation, right? I mean, you can feel me better, can you not?
Oh, yes.
When I put this here? All right. So, and again, the heart mind is critical to healing because it needs that feminine field balance to achieve being healed. Being battered around in the masculine side isn't going to get you there.
No.
Even though you may be powerful, but it's not going to work. The same as if you're receiving from the nurturing of the feminine. One thing I learned about recently was when your heart pumps, it sends a wave and it goes down your arteries and it splits into two arteries to go down your legs. And where it splits, there's an actual echo wavefront that happens, and it comes back to the heart. So when the heart has to do the second pump, it's got this interference wave to deal with. So I go, well, when I learned that, I go, well, we can fix that energetically. Let's put in a frequency to negate that echo, the bifractional echo. So I did that, and then as soon as I did, like instantly, I could feel my heart relax. The next pump for sure was easier than the previous pumps were major change. So that's in there. And when we did that with Heather, she gets attacked by high dark a lot. And so it races her heart. So sometimes her heart numbers are just crazy out of whack. So I gave her a treatment with that, and she went 120 over 81, bang, with a pulse of 67 instead of 80s and 90s. So we couldn't be more pleased for what that particular signature did for Heather.
There's certainly proof in that pudding, though, isn't there?
Oh yeah, because she's never got those numbers. Like she's always crazy. Like I won't get into it, but those are that's normal numbers, and we never get normal numbers up until that point, virtually never. So my blood oxygen is on here. I tested it at 99. I'm tuned enough to know that I can tune in myself, and I know when I'm low. And since I've been doing this, I've been high. I've been at the 99 or better level. Collagen, we discussed a bit, but I can feel the elasticity in my body. Not only that, when I do a sound treatment, or I'm doing my hour in the morning or 2 hours, because one of the things that I've noticed, one of the profound things that I've noticed, is that Sadhguru, the Eastern mystics, they say that you got to eat that fresh food. Well, that's not always easy to do. And if you could live on a farm and they grew all your own food, that'd be the utopian condition. But we don't generally have that opportunity. So to enhance the food is a big thing. And what they're saying, what Sadhguru says, he used to sleep 3-4 hours a night. Now he's getting a little older and lazier, he says, so he sleeps 4 or 5. But that's the number of hours he sleeps. And I go, I like my 8 hours. That's where I come from. And I'm not a morning person, so don't even talk to me until noon. That's generally that's how I've been. Well, here's how I am now. I was up at 3:45 this morning, wide awake. And in the last couple of weeks, most of the mornings I've been awake, and I mean wide awake and alert at 5 o'clock. That's bizarre to me.
Well, that's one thing I'm noticing too, is that my sleep is, I try as hard as I can to sleep as long as I can, but it ain't happening anymore.
It's not happening. You just don't need it. Okay. So what I'm doing now is I'm getting up, giving myself a treatment, and then doing my breathing, and I'm out of bed by 8 o'clock. And when I get out of bed, what's so different, instead of kind of like plowing up and going to the bathroom, I bounce out of bed, I do a couple of quick stretches, and I float to the kitchen, like I'm bounding to the kitchen. Like that is not me in the morning for sure. My whole life I've been like that until now. Even with the rings, it would be less, but I would still be like that basically. Now I'm not like that at all. I mean, you can see my energy right now. Normally at later in the afternoon, I start to peter out, even if I got my 8 hours of sleep. I mean, I just start dropping off at 4 o'clock. Well, with this, when I first started using this, that's when I got the granite. And I went to pick up the granite, and I pulled the pallet apart, went through a second pallet, and the guy who was the manager there He's Vietnamese. He comes out and he goes, "Why are you not tired? You should be tired. How come you're not tired?" And I says, "Well, I'm in a hurry. I want to get home before traffic starts because it's getting be 4 o'clock now." And he's on my case because I just didn't quit.
And you're 98 pounds smoking.
Exactly. I'm like just over 100 pounds. Well, I'm carrying 50, 60, 70-pound slabs of granite, shuffling them around, making them fit so that the pallet's nice and neat, so it looked like looks presentable for when I leave. Because the stuff's free, I'm not going to leave a mess. So the guy, but he wasn't concerned about, I kept saying, I'm going to do a good job of cleaning up. He wasn't concerned about that at all. He was flabbergasted that I was still there all afternoon doing that. And he watched me, I could see him watching me, and I don't quit. I stop and have a shot of water and keep on going. And he was just astounded at that. So then I come home, and some evenings I'm moving the granite around. I work till like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Like I start at 8 and I'm going till 9 o'clock. I'm packing it in because it's getting dark. So that's amazing stamina for that kind of work. And my physique, I'm small and slight, but my muscle tone is like way better. I helped build a house in my 20s. That's what it reminded me of. I look and I go, that's the 20-year-old body I used to have. So I thought that was impressive.
No doubt.
Now, another thing that I put in there is there's research on NAD. Most people know what that is, look it up. And there's NMN, and there's niacin. And what those do is they trigger the telomeres. And as the telomeres get older, then the genetics don't work so well. So if you can rebuild the telomeres back up, so let's do that. So I combined the energies of those three, and then I directed them at the telomeres. And if you feel my telomeres, they're like on speed right now. That's what it feels like in my body.
I see a bit of a plasma field, of like a plasma ball.
Exactly. They feel like they're on plasma. And that's your plasma heart field. So I feel like I'm in my own heart field now. I don't have to go looking for one. So do I feel nurtured? Very much so. At the DNA level. Another big bonus. Another aspect is your chakras all connect to an endocrine gland, which are antennas. Your chakra is an antenna, the gland is an antenna, and they each have their own bandwidth of consciousness. Well, if they're not working together, then the system doesn't function as well. So what I did is I put a waveform in there and a consciousness, same, and connected them to each other so they would work as a whole. So there's a harmonic, there's a literal harmonic for the endocrine system. And I don't know how to explain it other than I feel better. I feel more complete is probably a good way of putting it. Okay.
That's good.
If you want to boost your immune system, here's my tricks or methods, not tricks. Magic more than tricks. Silver, colloidal silver, for example. But colloidal silver is, to me, way overrated. You want to go to nano silver, and you want to bring that silver to at least the 4th octave. Now you got something that rocks, okay? So I put in nano silver and oxygen and direct that to your immune system. Add some arsenic at least 6th octave, and add that, and you can see your immune system. If you've got a meter on it, you can just see the needle going up like this as you assimilate that. If you put that into one meal, at the end of the meal, if you dose, you'll see your immune system went up. And I had my immune system tested years ago, and it came out at 41,000 on this guy's scale. I said, well, what's the normal person? And he goes, 8 to 10, because his jaw was dropped. And I says, well, he goes, you're 41,000. And I go, is that a problem? And he goes, well, I said, what's the average? He goes, 8 to 10. Most people are under 10. Like very few are over 10. And I'm at 41. So once I did this, these downloads, a few days ago, I asked, well, what is my immune system on that scale? What would it be now? Well, what is it now? And guidance said it was 69,000. Okay, so if the norm is 8 to 10, I'm at least 7 times normal for immunity. Gives you confidence.
You don't need a vaccination now, do you?
No, or the chip. No chipping. Okay, now there's another aspect here that most people probably haven't given much thought to, is if you look at your neurons in your brain, you take a picture of them, and you see that they're all connected to each other through a network, the neural network, okay? If you go and you take a picture of our galaxy, and you use, I believe it's a radio telescope, you will see the identical net.
Yes.
All of the stars are connected to each other with that net, okay? Now, if that's galactic, then in order for you to get more conscious of that galactic bandwidth, a good way to do that would be to connect the 3 nets. So if this is up in spirit, then here's the mind. So this is my neural net. So there's one above and there's one below. That's the mind, or the man being the mediator. The neural net that's in the earth is the mycelium network from the mushrooms. So I put that awareness into my own neural net along with the galactic neural net and merged them all together in a harmony, in a harmonic. So I put that harmonic in there. What does it do? It connects you to your higher self.
There you go.
In a
That's
very,
what we're all looking for, right?
in a kinetic way.
Mhm.
Another thing that's in there is mercury is one of those things that we all know is a poison at a lower level. But if you understand transmutation of elements, mercury is instrumental in that. So if we can transmute the mercury to a higher octave of resonance, then it will facilitate transmuting the alchemical process of becoming aware beings in our own bodies. So the mercury is also been dealt with. Now, there's the basic principles of growing and expansion in creation. And on Earth, we had what was called the tree of life. And it was a tree that grew roots and went literally miles into the sky up, is what the texts say. Okay, so obviously it had the energy of creation welling up at the root level. So if we can download that, and we actually carry a shungite sphere, and it's got stamped on or etched on it the tree of life. So I tuned into the actual awareness, consciousness of the original tree of life, downloaded that into that pendant. And I go, well, why don't I put that into the triple pyramid in the shungite? So I did. So it's got the tree of life, it's got the flower of life, and it's got the elixir of life. You go into Greek mythology, and you speak of ambrosia.
Yeah.
Well, what's that? I go, well, let's find out. Let's go tune into ambrosia. And it's supposed to be based on orange juice. So yeah, that seems to check. So let's put in their version of orange juice, not what we have from the fridge, the orange juice. And then I sensed that the second element, because there was 3 elements, the second element was monoatomic gold. So I brought that in, and monoatomics, by the way, go to the 6th octave. So if you take monoatomic gold and you compare it to the 7th octave of gold, it's higher, the 7th, okay? By the way, one thing that I need to mention is that the elements, the metals that are making the triple pyramid, the copper, the brass, the gold, they're all at 4th octave. So even if they were just crushed, somebody drove over your triple with the truck, you could touch the gold and the because they're at high resonance. They're at 4th octave. Okay. Now, one last point here on oxygen. What we did is we put a divinity ring, the 9-inch ones. I started with the 4s, but the 9s work better, obviously. We put it on my oxygen and acetylene tanks, initially just on the oxygen tank. And I had a guy working for me, and I asked him, could you let me know if you notice anything different? So I came in, I put the ring there, and I left. And I came back about half an hour later, and I said, oh, did you notice any difference? And he goes, are you kidding? He says, I had to turn the oxygen way down. I says, well, how much? He said, oh, probably a third. I go, really? And he goes, yeah. And he says, and I'm using less solder and the weld is better. So, and if you go near it, the ozone's pretty harsh because it's just a little guy. It doesn't cover much area. So it concentrates and there's not much air movement there. So it concentrates. So if you walk by there, you're going to get a shot of ozone. Mm-hmm. And if you get too close, you can tell it'll bite your lungs a bit, which is not good for you. You don't want that condition. So I put the divinity ring on the little ozone generator, and you can walk by there and take a big gulp breath and it doesn't bother you. So your body can take that oxygen way easier. So it does something to the oxygen. Now, if I'm going to charge a glass of water, and I just use the triple pyramid, that's going to put in a really good charge, and it will oxygenate it. But if I put a divinity ring behind it, you can feel the difference. It's considerably better. So, and needs to say, if we use a 9-inch divinity, you can see the water it's stronger water. It's got more light in it. Okay, so what I'm doing now in bed in the morning is I place the triple on one side and I place the divinity ring on the other. And what I noticed is that sometimes it will cause some spasming. My legs are fine. They're sore from standing up and grinding and what have you. And they're sore, but they didn't spasm. I placed the pyramid there, and within about a minute or less, they start spasming. Mild, it's not critical or anything, but you can feel these little spasms going on. What I think it is it's resistance to the flow of the natural flow of energy. So the pyramid goes in there, and after about 5 minutes or so, it releases the spasm because now the leg is now charged up and relaxed. The muscles are more relaxed, and the spasming goes away. So I didn't have it, and when I started, and then it goes away when I'm done. But that may be something you run into. So if you charge, for example, let's say you have a headache, you can place it here like that, and that'll get one effect. But if you place it like that, where your head's inside the chamber, it's a different effect. Okay, this may hurt, or this may hurt, and the other not. So if you get some pain, because when you add energy to the system and there's resistance there, there's more buildup of energy because it's not flowing. And during that time, you can get more pain. So can you overdo these? Absolutely. I was trying to find the threshold yesterday, but I didn't quite get there. But I've been doing this for 35 years. I've had other people come here and they come near the pyramid, and they come about 3 feet away and they stop. And they go, I'm not going near that for just yet. So they'll take 2, 3, 10 minutes before they even go in front of it. And then when they do, 20 seconds. Several of them, 20 seconds, and they're done. That's their first download, and they're done. Now, you can come back 10 minutes later and do a minute. Mm-hmm. But the first download, don't expect to be there for all day. It's not going to happen. It will be like you drink way too much coffee.
That doesn't happen here. So anything else that you want to mention quickly before we wrap things up?
Actually, I'm at the last line of my sheet. I'm done.
How about that? How about that?
How
So
about that?
so now all these tools that they're available on my website. Can they buy them from you also?
I prefer not to because I am a one-man operation at this point, growing way faster than I would like to. It's all wonderful, but please don't call me.
Okay,
The reason I
we'll
have
take
you,
care of that
Chris,
for you, Wayne.
pardon me?
We'll take care of that for you.
That is exactly why you're here. We're a team, and that's your department, not mine.
Okay.
So if there's inquiries, please send them to Chris or a dealer that's close to you. But we highly recommend Chris, and we're very comfortable here.
Now this is an interview I've been wanting to do for about 10 years. Okay. And I mean, our schedules, you're always running current. I'm doing other things. I got two small kids now. I'm in a band. We got all kinds of things going on. And to me, today is a very special day, Wayne. Very special day.
I totally agree. I've wanted to do this forever, and I don't do anything because my ego says that it is. If I can tune in and find out what Spirit says, and Spirit said today was the day, and I've been chomping at the bit like you for a long time. And in the last month, I can't wait. I am so enthused over this because the potential for healing, you know what the beauty of this is? You get to heal yourself. You get to discover yourself. Now, how big a treasure is that? You get to learn about you.
That's huge.
What it's about.
And for a lot of people, that's what we're looking for is that knowledge, that feeling, that thing that we're all looking for that we're missing. And it's starting to come forward. The ascension process is bringing it all forward.
Yes. Yeah. Well, like the masters say, know thyself.
Know thyself.
And
exactly.
this
All right.
really helps you there.
So let's wrap it up. Any last words?
Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and happy healing.
Indeed. This is Chris Kaler for True Quantum TV. We're out of here. We'll talk soon.